everybody. So I just want to do something a little bit casual. Uh, Laid back, but I also want to do something that's a very advanced. So if you follow Neville Goddard and you follow most of the YouTubers and the coaches, which are great, by the way, go follow them, learn from them, and also listening to Neville's work and, deep diving into Neville's articles and books and so on, which is I'm a huge fan of. But this channel is about going advanced and going to the advanced level. And that's the heartbeat of why I'm doing what I do and why I'm doing it and so on and so forth. So, also, if you're watching this, make sure that you share this out to friends and strangers and so on. And so what I want to do is I'm going to talk about feelings, and feeling is the secret. But that for me, going deeper means we have to go back, which means we have to understand some basic concepts that I think that are misrepresented, misunderstood, and things in which we think we know the definition to, or we think we know the idea of it. And I'm working on an article for my Reddit, and it's kind of breaking down what the imagination is. And Neville talks about the imagination in several different ways and places, and he defines it differently, but they're all the same. But the way he's nuancing it, which means he's adding a little bit more detail every single time. And he's developing the concept over time, because keep in mind, Neville was human, and he himself was in the growth pattern, meaning he was also growing. He was also learning. He was also exploring, and he was also testing. I don't think there was ever a day where he wasn't testing. And when he says that we're always imagining, and by the way, this will lead to feeling is the secret and what it means, and how we can use it. And I don't find a lot of work out there on this, what I'm about to share on this definition. There's one other fellow coach who talked about this. But why don't we go into the definition of what the imagination is? Okay, so what I'm going to do is, you might find a little lag right here. I'm going to go share this out. I might even do some editing afterwards, but I want to make sure everybody's in, and make sure that you share and come in and say hello if you're new, and tap that screen. That actually helps get the algorithm out, and use emojis and so on. So, what is the imagination? Oh, thank you for the like. Thank you. And introduce yourself. If it lags out, I do apologize. Allison, how are you? How's life? And how's your 19 children? Come on in. Yes. Well, your imagination is never not intense, right? Your imagination is constantly at work. And, and if you guys can do me a favor, just share this out with everybody. If you haven't joined the Discord, it's free. John, how are you? Come on in, guys. Introduce yourself. Where are you from? How's your 19 children? How's your job with El Chapo? Can you tap? And if you're in the room, can you just hit that thumbs up button, the like? Don't forget, oh, that's good, Allison. Why don't we talk about that for a second, okay? We're going to talk about what Neville means when he talks about feeling is the secret. But before that, we need a major definition. If you guys can hit the like button up there, hit some heart emojis, introduce yourself. What state are you from? How are you? What country are you from? I have people from India, Europe, everybody. Don't forget to join the Discord. There's a free link in my bio. If the link is dead, just hit me up, leave a comment. There's also an email there. I do coaching. It's all backed by neuroscience and behavioral science and social media. Oh man, Tracy, you guys, you're saying some of the best stuff ever. Kermit D. Frog. I'd love to go to Goa. I've lived in India, by the way. So I am a manifestation coach. No, I don't do the woo side. I don't burn candles and read astrology signs and do sage. No judgment, but Neville was against that for the very reason that gives your power away. And so we are going to talk about manifestation. But like I said, I'm trained in neuroscience, psychology, and welcome everybody. Welcome. If you can do that, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. I will be going live regularly. I also go live on Jordan's Adventurous World, which is another one, but that's more TikTok, comedy, stand-up, improv, characters, and stuff like that. So Check me out on TikTok as well. But also, I'm going to be writing a new Reddit on what Neville means when he says the imagination. So if you're new to the work of Neville Goddard, he was a New Thought leader, and he became prominent in 1930s, 1940s, and he died around 1976, I believe, or something like that. And so, but when he's talking about the imagination, so one, let me ask you, Tracy, why would you say that your imagination is the, why would you say it's the best and the worst, right? And then, Allison, why would you say yourself, why don't you like the imagination? And so, I want to hear this. And SK, how is your imagination intense? So the imagination, when he says the imagination is always working, or that we're always operating it, okay, so again, keep in mind, Neville wrote not in riddles, but he wrote in levels. And so, he's building his own opus. He's building his own work, but his work is very much based and dependent upon his own experience of the imagination. So in one of his books, he talks about how the imagination is your perception. The imagination is your senses, your five senses, your taste, touch, hear, and hear. And also at its most basic level, the imagination is, daydreaming, right? But there is more to that, right? Oh, SK, that's awesome. Would love to hear more about it. No, Koski. No. See, the problem with when people go, oh, you'd be a millionaire. What if people don't want to be a millionaire? What if they don't want to be famous? People see where you like Koski. That's a very interesting statement. It says more about where your values are, which isn't a bad thing. Like, there's nothing wrong with you wanting all of that, right? But you can't make that assumption that everybody else wants that as well. It's like, for example, an actor who assumes everybody wants to be an actor. No, they don't. There's some people who never want to ever be an actor. And it's like, well, everybody wants to be famous. No, they don't. Not everybody. It's like when I lived in other countries and we get conditioned in this country to think everybody wants to move to America. No, they don't. I've met people who will barefaced tell me, and they live in supposedly the poorest parts of the world, who like, no, I don't. I would never want to move to America, and I have no dreams and no passions and no aspirations, and and people are like, well, no, they don't know what they're missing. They don't care. Like, they absolutely don't care. And so we have to stop making the assumption that because we ourselves want that's how people measure success. Even Neville says that. Like, everybody's measuring success differently, right? And so everybody's measuring success very differently. And so, we have to be very, very careful to always make that judgment call, right? And, one of the other things is that manifestation doesn't always happen overnight, and that's one thing that also Neville says, well, he says there's a time interval, right? And manifestation can happen. I've manifested stuff within 10 seconds. Not that. Let me see. That's awesome, SK. Tell us more about that, because my mind is always thinking, predicting depending on my mood. Yes. Yeah. So, yes. Thank you for that. That's a great one, Tracy. How are you doing, by the way? Oh, okay. So yeah, I've been in Germany. I love Germany. The whole idea, SK, of like visiting people's birth and death places, that's great, but that's worshiping other people. I've read Marx and I like some of Marx's stuff, but visiting like their stuff, it's not, that's not really, to me, like if it helps you remember, hey, you're going to die one day, and helps you live with passion, then that's why you want to do it. You don't want to do it just to do it because everybody else is doing it and it's a famous thing to do, right? But yeah, so let's go back. So for Neville, the imagination occupies many, many, many different definitions for him. Okay, it isn't one thing. And this is very dangerous to automatically assume and think that the imagination is always just one thing. Because so when Neville says that the imagination is always working, he even takes it from the Bible version that God is always at work, right? And I mean, it says in the Psalms, it's inferred throughout Scripture. But remember, God isn't God, a Christian God. God isn't a religious God. God is a metaphor for your imagination. So, God is always creating. Your imagination is always creating. It's always on. Another way of saying that is your subconscious. He talks about it being the subconscious. In other places, he talks about, like I just said, he talks about it being your perception. It's, keyed low, which is really just saying in the most basic form, it's your imagination, right? And so, meaning it's literally your imagination. Like it's where when, as you get older, stop imagining things. Live in reality. One time, somebody actually interacted with Neville, and he was giving her advice, and he tells the story, and he says, he goes, if you want advice from me, he goes, I'm not the most reasonable man, right? And what that means is he's thinking from not reason. And so he even says, the imagination is without reason, meaning when he says that, what he's talking about is that there is an imagination that you can use that'll build this world, this 3D world, the shadow world, but then there's also a reason that doesn't exist in this world, and that reason exists within. And so that's also another definition he actually gives imagination. So people are really confused by it because he uses several different definitions, several different metaphors for the imagination. Some people say, oh, well, it's just visualization. No, it's not. The reason why visualization is different from how Neville defines the imagination is because I can visualize anything, but visualization with emotion and conviction and knowing and no doubt, right? Or what I call the Pareto principle, like where you have 80% faith or 80% belief or 80% knowing and conviction, right? That this is going to happen with 20% doubt. That's pretty much going to get you to that point where you're like, I know for a fact this is going to happen, right? But so the imagination is also conviction. The imagination is something that you yourself know. But again, people are like, well, how do you know? Right. Well, and we're gonna talk about ways in which you can speed up. We're gonna talk about all of this kind of stuff. But to fully understand what Neville meant when he said, to like feeling is a secret, that's why I wanted us to go into first, what is the imagination? So the imagination isn't one thing. It's all these things. It's your perception. It's meaning. So in the beginning was meaning, right? It was in the beginning God created. It was meaning that created. It's meaning, it's perception, it's your five senses. It's all these things combined. It's not one thing, right? He also says something else, and this is my big area because I'm a trained psychologist, not a therapist. It's beliefs. So he says, it's a body of beliefs. Your imagination is a body of beliefs that you are fully participating in every day, right? And so what does that mean? Well, remember, it is not a belief. It's not a singular belief. It's a body of beliefs. If you guys can do me a favor, just do like 10 shares or tap, and do likes up there as well, if you don't mind, and introduce yourself and tell me where you are on your journey with manifestation. This channel is not about basic manifestation. It's about advanced manifestation and trying to understand the different levels. So if you're here with a basic knowledge of either Neville or manifestation, you want to upgrade, you're in the right place. If you just want the basic stuff and you don't want any more questions, then this may not be the channel for you. And I'm not trying to make anything confusing. I'm trying to take us to a deeper level. And I really do believe that Neville was all about that. Like, he didn't write in code, but he definitely wrote in such a way where he invited people to go deeper, right? And so that's what I want people to do. Because I see this as a lifelong project, not as something that you just do just to get stuff, right? There is a spiritual awakening side to this, and he talks about that all throughout his work. And he focused a lot in the last few years of his own journey. And he knew that, like, he even talks about it, like, well, you know what? People may walk away from this, but I don't care, like, kind of attitude. And, with respect, obviously. And so, when you're trying to fully grasp what he's talking about with the imagination, let's just use the subconscious, right? The subconscious mind. Okay, but even then, people are like, what the hell is the subconscious mind, right? And so, Allison, I've been studying this for like 5 years, something like that. And then I'm trained in neuroscience from Harvard, and I'm a trained behavioral scientist and social psychologist, and that I've been for 10 years. And I've also been a coach in this for about 2 years. And if you guys are looking for coaching, I have payment programs, everything. Check out all the information on my bio. I have an email you can ask more questions on, because I want you guys to be successful. And And to me, there's a lot of coaches out there that are trying to get your money. And even though, yes, I do charge, I try to make it as affordable as possible because I give you breakdowns and you can pay it over months. But my job as a coach is to make sure you don't depend on me, and so eventually move you along. So again, let me go back to this. So the imagination is, something that is about the subconscious mind. But again, what is the subconscious mind? It is like a recording machine that is in your mind, that is basically a way in which your mind operates. Okay, so it is like a recording machine, right? So, you have this idea of like Santa Claus always listening, right? Santa Claus always checking trice and all this kind of stuff. Oh, I have a great example, Tracy. And I've actually shared it on my Reddit. So make sure you go join me on Reddit. I'm gonna be writing another one about some of the stuff that we're talking about right now. And it's under the name OK Initiative. And it'll say Jordan Bridger on there. And then, and so I will answer you next. Okay, so please hang out. Guys, can we share this out and just double tap and do hearts and all this kind of stuff? And if you want to give gifts, that's great. But basically, let's go back to this, and then I want to answer Tracy's. All right. Yeah. No. I mean, I'm not against that, Tracy. I think what happens though, and this is what I've seen in places like Reddit, and I also own my own, like not own. I also have done a WhatsApp group, and so on and so forth. Is that people get a little bit addicted to the story, and they're like, no, that I want to know the technique. I want to know the method. Neville says, no, like stop, like don't become addicted to the method. You are the method. He does say, like in his lecture, Picture Imaging, like find a method that works for you, but do not, because you are the method. Like, so let me just say it this way, like you are the placebo, right? So anything that works for you works for you. If you make it the rule that you have to do a headstand for 10 minutes and then you manifest, that's because that's what you believe, right? So remember, you always get what you believe. So the subconscious mind, and I'm going to answer Tracy's question. So, the subconscious mind is always working. It's like a machine, like a recording machine, right? God is always hearing. God is always listening. People almost hear that and they get fearful. It's not that. It's that God is your subconscious mind. Right? That's what the Bible means. The Bible's not written about a historical dude named Jesus or Moses or Abraham. And even if these guys existed, it wasn't the point. Even Joseph Murphy talks about this, right? Then we'd be getting caught up in the point that the metaphorical, or the authors who wrote in metaphor, were trying to get us to think deeper, right? And so really, like Neville says, and I agree with him, like the Bible is written to the mind, for the mind, not to the human self, not to the ego. It's written to the inner self. It's, and so, at the same time, back to the subconscious mind, then to Tracy's question. And the subconscious mind is recording, but it's already been recording. Meaning you already have all of these conditioned thoughts and fears, and not just fears, but joys and ways of experiencing and defining joy and meaning and all of these kinds of things, right? Yes, exactly, Tracy. And so it's something that has so Paul says it this way, the Apostle Paul, that we are vessels. And so the vessel doesn't change what it does. The vessel is always carrying, but it's always entering and exiting, right? Meaning things are always entering, beliefs and behaviors and ways of operation and so on and everything, right? Exactly, yeah. So you can think of it like how Aristotle defined virtues, right? You are embodying these characteristics, right? Yeah, exactly. Yes, 100%. And Joseph Murphy does really good as well as breaking those down as well. And you can take that from Jungian psychology as well. I'm not a Jungian. This is why I'm working on taking Neville's work and kind of making it more postmodern. But I'm more Freudian and more Lacanian. And that guy's crazy. Like it takes you 3 years to learn his work. So basically, Tracy, I haven't forgot your question. All right, so when you're trying to fully grasp and understand what is happening with the subconscious mind, the best metaphor is that it is like a well. And so in that well is your childhood conditioning. So there's a psychologist named Jean Piaget, and he says, listen, by the ages of 5 to 8, every person will have a mental map of the world. He calls it a schema, right? And so that means you're gonna figure out who you are. You're not thinking like this, by the way. You're not thinking at like 6, I've arrived and I've figured out who I am. That would be crazy. But like basically that is how your identity is mapped out by then, right? And so how you act, how you perceive others, how you perceive truth, how you perceive possibility, love, rejection, everything, right? And so, but that's happening at an age where you don't really have the power or capacity to challenge it. You just simply accept it, right? And so a lot of our conditioning and fears and rejection and limiting thoughts are usually, not always, usually from that thought. And if you find one and trace it back at the age of 12, 17, 22, right? I guarantee you can trace it back further. Maybe even to that 5 to 8 years of age where you'll be like, oh, I learned about rejection, but then at the age of 12, I lived that out. I made a decision based on that, right? And so that's what is going on. Your subconscious mind is something that has a store, a reservoir, a well of consistent storytelling, because your brain is a storyteller, right? I mean, you're getting dopamine for telling the same story over and over. Let me just say it another way. You're getting rewarded for telling stories you don't want to be telling, right? And then you become addicted to them. And then you identify yourself as that person, and you don't want to be that person, but you're getting rewarded for it. So you continue it, right? And that's also what dopamine does as well. It's a neuromolecule that's about expectation, okay? And so the more you do it, the brain's like, oh, this is you. Hence why it's hard for addicts to break the cycle, because the brain's like, no, don't change that. This is who you are, okay? So let me go back to Tracy. So again, remember, I'm telling you a story as an example of using the law. Okay, I'm not telling you a story because my method will work exactly for you. I would actually go the other way and say my method may not work for you, because it's not about the method, it's about you. Remember, the method's supposed to get you to the point of conviction and knowing, right? That's what he means by feeling a secret, but that's part of feeling it, is the secret. I have about 10 more minutes and 10, 15 more minutes, and then I need to go. Don't forget though, get in touch, join the Discord, it's free. There's loads of supportive people like you. If the link is dead, let me know and I'll make sure, either by emailing me or leaving a comment on my other videos. And make sure that if you don't mind, share a few of my videos, share a few comments and all this kind of stuff. It means a lot to me, actually. And so, basically, one of the stories is this blows my mind. I share this with my kids. So there was one year where I was called in for jury duty. I didn't want to do jury duty. I didn't have time to do jury duty. And, everybody has a different view of what jury duty is and what you're supposed to do. And is it a civil duty that you should be doing? And, you should do it no matter what and all this kind of stuff. Well, remember, Neville says don't judge by appearances. Don't give something an ethical boundary. He talks about Peter and his vision of the blanket, right? Eating meat, not eating meat, and so on. And so he says, like, don't call anything good or bad, right? Because then you're conditioning it. So I didn't want to do jury duty, okay? So my son, he's very knowledgeable, okay, about algorithms, the science of algorithms, what computers do with algorithms, how algorithms work, and so on and so forth. So I was called up to do jury duty. Now, the way that they did it here in Los Angeles is that you have to sign in on a computer. You don't go in. Right? You check in and then they'll call you in if they need you to come in person. And they don't give you much time. Like, you have to check in every morning, and then they'll say, okay, this morning we need you to come in and you got about half an hour to get here. Right? So I go in, and I don't physically go in. So I'm checking in. Now, legally, by requirement, okay, you have to check in 7 days. Okay? Now, here's the thing. This is an algorithm. This is not. And I even checked with them, like the courts, like nobody's on the other side canceling or checking on it. It's all algorithm, 100% algorithm. There's no human interface, because it could be illegal even on the court side of things if somebody's tampering with how the algorithm is working, right? This is government stuff, people. So this is very important for you to hear, okay? So what I did is I just basically felt it real. Now, I was not perfect. Hear this, because people hear this and they're like, it has to be perfect. No, it does not, right? But what I was doing is I didn't write. I think I wrote it down once in the present tense, or actually I think I did it 3 days in a row. Okay, and I wrote it down in the present tense, right? So grateful I didn't have to do my jury duty. Okay, but then throughout the day, and again, I'm not giving you like a time lap or like if I did it 3 times, I did it 7 times. I didn't pay attention. I was just going throughout the day whenever I thought about it. And yes, and by the way, sometimes I was really anxious. Like I'd be really anxious going in and checking on the website, right? And so basically, now remember, you're required by law to do this process for 7 days straight, okay? And there is nobody else on the other side of that computer. It would be illegal for them to do that, okay? They have to just leave the algorithm as is. Are you guys with me? Because nobody's responding. So, right, and so basically what ended up happening is I ended up doing that, but I was also affirming in the positive, and it was not perfect. Hear this, okay? And so, I just kept saying, I'm so grateful I have time to hang out with my family. You know, I'm so grateful that I'm able to do other things. I'm so grateful that I was able to finish my other work, which is what I wanted to be doing, right? And so, you know, I'm so grateful for like the peace, right? And so I was getting myself to learn, and yes, and this is important, because a lot of people say, well, it has to be natural. If you've never experienced peace in your life, you sometimes have to fake peace. Even Neville says, when you're talking about building a new assumption, he really does say it's going to feel like you're lying to yourself, right? Though false, that's his word, though false. Though false. Let me say it again. This is his word. Though false. Continue, persist, right? You're going to want to gaslight yourself. Not other people. That's a jerky thing to do, right? You want to gaslight yourself and saying, nope, this is actually happening, right? So I went there, day 3 comes, and I'm already nervous. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's getting to be like crazy, blah, blah, blah. So day 2 passes, day 3 comes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're gonna call me in. So again, it's not perfect. Day 4, morning of day 4, no joke. I have screenshots of this, everything. It literally says, thank you for your service as a juror. We really appreciate your time that you put in. It's because of you and jurors like you that we can do what we do, and that you have actually fulfilled your civil service, and you are done for jury duty for the next 5 years. That is nuts, okay? I have other ones that are crazy like that, but like that is, again, a crazy circumstance that shouldn't have happened that way. One, because I should have had to gone through the week long and then get that message, right? And so basically, you know, that is something that, again, that I was just blown away, because here's what they were saying. They were saying, you've done it. You've actually gone through jury duty. You've actually done your jury duty part. And so they reacted and responded as if I was there and came in person and actually sat in a jury box and actually did however long it was. Okay, it wasn't just saying thank you for going through the virtual process. They were responding to me as if I had actually fulfilled in-person responsibility. Okay, so yes, the law works. Yes, I believe it works. And that's why I'm good at what I do. And that's why I've been doing what I do, because I believe in what I do, right? And that's really what this comes down to. So let me go to, because I have about 8 more minutes, and I want to make sure that you guys get this, because this is a new thing. I've only heard one of the other coaches talk about this. Most people hear feeling is the secret, and they think of the word feeling, okay? Even when I started this, I thought it meant feeling. It's not that. And Neville talks about this. But he talks about this in levels. Most of what he writes about is in levels. I have not heard many coaches approach this. They approach Neville too literal, right? And Neville, to me, is always talking metaphorically, and he's talking about usually on 3 different levels. Like, he seems to love the number 3. So, for example, when he talks about a state, that's 3 separate things. When he talks about identity, it's 3 separate things. When he's talking about an assumption, it's 3 different things. It's not one thing. Okay, So, building and breaking and sustaining a state are about three things. This is why most people fail. And I'm not going to go into it today because I've gone into other things, but a state is a body of beliefs, not one belief, a body of beliefs, memories, and emotions, okay? But feeling is the secret is different, okay? Because feeling does mean conviction, but it's a leading to. So I've actually created, it was pretty awesome, an AI chart that I've shared in my Discord, which you should join, it's free. I also have shared it on one of the posts in my Reddit, okay? And so basically what it is it's a process. He doesn't always talk about the process, but it's a process, okay? So when you're talking about feeling is the secret, you are the process, you're it, not the process itself. Not I've got to get from A to B. No, you are the A to B, right? That's it. There's nobody else. There's no God. There's no church. There's no Bible. There's no listening technique. There's no SATs, which is states akin to sleep, which is one of his techniques. It's a technique. He even says it, right? And so what it is when he's saying feeling is the secret, this is really, really awesome. But and it's going to take me like 2 minutes, and then I'm pretty much going to give you some techniques, right? Ironically, I'm from like NLP and science and stuff. And so basically what he's talking about is feeling is the secret. So yes, it is conviction, but it leads to a conviction, right? It takes time. But 2 is feelings are referring to how we understand consciousness. I don't like the word consciousness because it sounds too woo-woo. I'm more of a scientist. Consciousness means memory. When you hear consciousness, or even when you hear his technique, the states akin to sleep, which is when you're building those not visualizations, when you're building those scenes from the first person and you're repeating an action over and over and over, right? Those are building new memories. You're overlaying old memories with new ones, right? So don't call SATs. Don't call them scenes. Call them memories, right? You're gonna think about it differently now. And so basically, when feeling is the secret, you have to understand that Neville was influenced by a lot. I mean, even before Neville gave up a lot of his training with the Rosicrucians and all this kind of stuff, he was very influenced by other things like the Kabbalah, Hebrew understanding. But that was a lot of that came from Abdullah. Basically, also the Upanishads, right? And the Upanishads have this theory, which I actually agree with, that you yourself as a human being, as a being, has 8 forms of consciousness. We're not going to go into all eight, right? I'm just going to go into 5, okay? Which Neville talks about 5 because he breaks apart the whole story of David and Goliath and the 5 stones, which is 5 senses, okay? Well, in the Upanishads, the Upanishads seems that there's 8 forms of consciousness. Let me say it this way. Remember the word consciousness. It doesn't mean consciousness like woo-woo. It means memory, right? So in the Upanishads, it argues that you have tongue consciousness, ear consciousness, eye consciousness, nose consciousness, and feeling consciousness. Let me say it a different way, and you're gonna agree with this probably, is every time, have you ever smelt something and you're like, oh, that reminds me of this? Have you ever heard of like a song and you're like, oh, that reminds me of this age when I did this with this person, right? You ever have something that you taste and you're like, oh, that reminds me of this? Or you ever feel your toe in sand and you're like, oh, that reminds me of like maybe you're at a local beach and then you're like, oh, that reminds me of like when I was when my husband and I went on Tahiti and like a honeymoon, right? So that's what it means. And so when Neville says feeling is the secret, he's always encouraging you to use your 5 senses, right? That's what it is. Feeling is the secret. Feeling, as in giving consciousness or awareness, using those 5 senses in your imagination from the first person, right? And doing that over and over and over, using your 5 senses. So you are literally creating memories when you're creating these scenes, and that's the feeling is the secret. Yes, it will lead to conviction, and you continuously lead them to conviction, which is how Neville basically defines feeling. But remember, he's defining it as the end, right? So he doesn't tell you the whole process to get there. He just says, you know what? Feeling is the conviction, yes, but how you get there, he doesn't always line it out as clearly because he's assuming you're going to do the deep work. That's what this channel is about, by the way. That's what my coaching program is about, right? And so that is ultimately what he is inferring. That's what he's encouraging. That is the kind of message that he is about. He's trying to inspire people to think deeper and to think at a deeper level. So yes, feeling is conviction, but that's a process and you're it. You are the process. That's what Alan Watts says and so on, right? You are it. And so here's a quick couple tips here, okay? And this is from NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Now, your brain is a priming machine, which means it's always looking for ways to behave a certain way, to justify why it behaves a certain way. It's a storytelling machine that you constantly are getting rewarded for. No matter what you're repeating, no matter how many times you're repeating it, your brain will reward you, okay? So, what you want to do is, for example, you always want to use what are called the 3-knob technique. Okay, and I talk about this, and I also have an ebook. If you join the Discord, actually, if you join my coaching program, you get it for free. And so it's just a very short, very short technique, little ebook, like 10 pages, 7 pages. Basically, what you want to do is when you create these scenes from the first person, you want to imagine at the bottom right hand of your screen are 3 knobs, okay? And you can use this also for actually disassociating or separating yourself from scenes that you don't want to have, and I'm going to tell you how as well. So basically, the first person scene, okay? The first knob is sound. The second knob is emotion. The third knob is color. Okay, so your brain loves deeply, like deeply colored, deeply loud, deeply emotional scenes. Okay, and so what you're going to do is when you create these scenes from the first person, the one that you want to be living and experiencing, make sure you turn up those knobs. Feel it, feel the ridges, like feel like you're actually turning up the knob, like you're a DJ of your own scene. Okay, right. So you're turning up the sound as high as you can. Almost to the point of like, right? Because what you're telling your mind is like, oh, this is happening. This is really happening right now, right? So you're turning up the brightness as bright as you can, almost like, Paul on the road to Damascus. And the same with emotion and the feeling and the sound, right? Now, the thing that is really powerful is the more that you do that, you intensify it. What does Neville say about a technique? He talks about intensification 2 different times throughout his work, right? And so that's intensifying the scene. And you're using and he even says, he goes, if you don't manifest what you want, it could be down to intensification, right? And so to me, that's not just him critiquing, he's literally giving you a technique, like in intensify. And also he talks about drenching, right? Which again, he argues, if you're not manifesting what you want, you're not drenching it enough, which means saturating yourself in those emotions of conviction. Not the emotions, just the emotions, because the emotions are part of this, right? Emotions lead to feelings, right? And so you're drenching it in the conviction, right? But again, it's a process. You got to start out with the process, right? If you can actually get and generate the emotion beforehand, then go into the scene, right? And assume, by the way, that you're God throughout. You don't and it's okay if you doubt, and right? But you want to get to the point where if you have to do this over a week, do it over a week. Remember, it took Victor over almost 2 years to manifest the new company. But it was actually through Neville that happened, by the way. Many people don't know that backstory. And so basically what you want to do is, and here's another technique, and then I'm gonna have to go. And don't forget to join the Discord. Remember, I do coaching programs, I do coaching packages, I do hourly coaching, I do payment programs. And so, please keep that in the back of your mind. There is an email, it's working email, Wonder Emporium. I also have a website, wonderemporiumcoaching.com. It's also, that one focuses more on the business side of what I do. I work with governments and stuff like that as well. But the last technique is using what I just told you, but now to disassociate. If you have a fear and it keeps repeating, and now what you do is you actually do it from the third person. This is not what you want to be doing first person. You want to see it like you're watching a movie on the movie screen, and you want to see yourself watching it, okay? And then this scene, you have the 3 knobs, and you're using the knobs, but you're turning down everything, right? So when you first start out, feel it, like feel the anxiety, feel the fear, feel the what if, feel all of that. Do not sit in it though, right? Because now what you're doing is you're feeling the moment of, oh my gosh, I remember when my parents were fighting at the age of 7 about money. And it's brought all this crap that I need to deal with about limiting beliefs about money, right? Well, feel it. Feel like, watch yourself, okay? Watch what they're doing. Have the scene play out as it was, okay? But then what I want you to do is I want you to slowly feel the ridges on the knobs, turn down the knobs, reach out and turn them down, like a TV, right? Feel the ridges in the knobs, make it real. Then turn down the music, turn down the sound, turn down the feeling, and turn down the color. Now, as you do this, right, this is also from NLP, push it away. Push it away. And as it's floating away, because you're going to do what's called an overlay, okay? As it's floating away, when it's about 80% out of your vision, but you can still kind of see it, it's black and white, no sound, nothing going on, you bring in a bigger scene, almost like flipping out a whiteboard. You bring in the bigger scene, right? This scene is the new scene. You want everything. Turn up the knobs, turn up the emotion, turn up the sound, turn up the color, right? And again, you turn it as bright as you can. Once you feel the intensity of it, then just kind of put it back to regular and just go through the emotions. Repeat the one emotion, one physical motion, and do it again and again and again. Guarantee you, this will up level your not only your experience, but it will up level your ability to manifest. And the better that you get at this, you can manifest things within 10 seconds, right? You can manifest things like, getting your place in line. Like, those are big wins. Don't call them bigger or small. That's another technique. Stop calling things big or small. Your brain will look at it and say, oh, that's huge. Okay, well then that's gonna take time. That's gonna take more time because you've just told your brain that this is a big manifestation, right? And so trick it. Be like, oh, this is small. This is easy. Whatever. It's just totally easy, right? So guys, I have loads more techniques. I have loads more science. I have loads more neuroscience. I have a very supportive group that you can join. There is a link in the Discord. Check it out. Click on it. If the link is dead, get a hold of me either by emailing me. Guys, I'm open for questions. I'm an open book. I have references. I have a resume. Just finished a course online with Harvard in neuroscience. So happy to show anything. But yeah, get in touch. Would love to have you part of, and I do have payment programs which make it cheaper. Everything from paying, making it cheaper bi-weekly, twice a week, twice a month, over 3 months, over 6 months, over a year. So get in touch. I really love what I do. I'm good at what I do, and I'd love to help you. So get in touch, and I hope you're having a great and happy New Year. Thank you for your time today, guys, and go check out my other stuff. Please leave comments, and much love to you guys all, and be amazing manifestors. You deserve it.